could go to grad school and have somebody else pay for it. But anyway, so this professor, it was the first time that the vibration class was offered in the spring. It's normally offered in the fall, and like it started off with like lower than usual number of students. Like it was like 15 people signed up for this class,
Yeah.
and within a week there were 6 people, and within a month there were only 3 people in this class. And this is the first time this professor had taught at the school. It was
No.
it was my favorite class ever. Like, it was challenging. Like he he took us out to dinner with his family because it's only 3 people in the class. So like we went out to dinner with his family. We had Indian food. He showed us how to order. Like the last week of class, like we all met at a coffee shop. Engineers meeting at a coffee shop is just kind of interesting. But no, I really liked the class. I really liked the information, and then I did research for him for like the next 2 years. And because I did research for him there, I know eventually when I talk about grad school, that was about the time that the 2008 recession was kicking in, and I was like, well, I could go to grad school and have somebody else pay for it by doing research for them, and make 20% more than I would with a bachelor's, which has been very accurate. Or
Really?
I could start,
Nice.
yeah, no, yeah, consistently. Like, oh, you have a master's degree. We have to pay you more. I'm like, yes, thank you.
Nice.
But historically, they say that if you start your career in a recession, then you usually end up making 20% less because you start off at a lower pay rate. So every raise that you get is based off of that first pay rate. Maybe a little less now that there are certain states that say that companies can't ask you what your current income is because they go, oh well, you're making this, we only have to offer you X amount in order to be more than what you're making. So I was like, oh well, if they will take me and I can have them pay for it, then I'll end up ahead.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. A professor at Purdue was a friend of a professor at Miami that I was friendly with, that I impressed in his classes. I did research for him for 3 years. I was on one project, and then that project lost funding, and I switched over to another project. And then I got a master's in mechanical engineering with a focus in vibration analysis.
Nice.
And that's what I've been doing ever since. I'm a noise vibration engineer. So when I was thinking about this podcast, and I was like, oh, if I had one piece of advice, what would it be? And I know I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but this is relevant here.
It's your show, man.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just here to help you tell your story.
I've been out in the sun all day, testing, panels,
Yeah.
driving through Dallas, so I'm just, I just had some delicious Thai food, so I am set. But the thing I thought was, if you want to be an engineer with with the title of engineer, you want to do like engineering work rather than compared to, business or project management. I highly recommend specializing. So, because I got a master's in mechanical engineering with a focus in vibration analysis, that gave me a tool belt that said, hey, I can apply that same information and technique to cars. So I worked for Nissan for 4 or 5 years doing noise and vibration analysis on cars. And there was stuff that I knew that my fellow engineers at Nissan didn't know, because I had a different tool belt. They were trained internally, so like, oh, this is vibration related to cars. This is powertrain. This is da da da, and it's all very relevant. But because I had the theory behind it, and go, oh, but we could run this test, or we could look at it this way and kind of flip it on its head a little bit.
Yeah.
After Nissan, I worked at. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So you'd say that that if you really want to do R&D and you really want to do design, you specialize, and the way you specialize is by getting a master's.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be with a master's. You could, undergrad, if you decide to go into get hired on, right?
Mhm.
There are people that get mechanical engineering and go into mechanism design, right? So they didn't have to necessarily get a master's in mechanism design, but they focused their career path on
Yeah.
mechanism design.
Yeah.
And because you have this specialized focus and you become specialized, it becomes very easy to like go, I want this job or not that job. And it also becomes very easy to say, hey, I am worth being paid for this very special thing because there's not that many people that do what I do,
Exactly.
and it can apply it to a wide range of things rather than a very narrow field. Now, there's nothing wrong with not being specialized. If you like project management,
Yeah.
great. I don't. I hate it. I, I was like, I don't want to be a manager. It's been, it's like at all. Like, I want to be the, material expert, not the
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah.
Like that is the career the path that I'd want. But if you want to be a manager, if you want to be a project manager, or anything along those lines, general engineering is great
Yeah.
because you have enough information to like make an informed decision and have intelligent conversations, but you're not like digging into like oh well, let me know what this fourth order equation is telling me, or like hey, that really weird software that you're looking at, you know can I know all the ins and out of that. No, you don't necessarily need that.
Yeah.
And you were talking earlier about how like um you haven't listed as engineer. You've done a lot of other things. And I
Yeah.
knew a guy in undergrad who's like, I'm getting an mechanical engineer. He was great. Like I had him in a lot of my classes. We both were like at top of the classes. It was really funny. Like oftentimes he'd start at the top and I'd start like in the middle, and by the end we kind of flip flop. You know, but he specifically went into engineering, but planned on be going into business. Like he was like, I want the engineering degree because I want to be like it's the thinking, the way of thinking about problems
Yeah.
and dissecting them, going through them, that I want to train my brain and to be trained in doing. Um, so yeah, so that's my advice. Like if you want, not necessarily R&D, but like if you like, hey, I have a passion for fluid mechanics,
Yeah.
then go follow that, and then it'll be very easy later on, especially if you're willing to move, to find jobs that fit that, because especially when you get into these um, in this world of computers, the things that are less electronic, vibrations, fluids, mechanisms, those things are kind of hard to
Yeah.
kind of pull out. The things that just can't be done by the computer itself. And I thoroughly love I love test engineering because I'm not behind a computer all day. When I was at Nissan, I drove the cars on their track. The largest test track in North America is in Arizona, and I part of my day was driving cars and listening for noise and vibration and running tests. I worked at Stanley Black and Decker for 4 to 5 years, and a big part of my job was using power tools.
It's
you
so
know,
fun.
yeah, and I didn't get a free Nissan, but I got a bunch of free tools, prototypes and whatnot that they're like, hey, we're gonna just throw this away. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah, you know.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that you spelled that out really well because it's exact. I think it's completely true. I perfectly identify with your friend. I'm the person that has never ever felt inspired to do engineering design in his life. Well,
Mhm.
okay, there was like a short period of time where I wanted to design golf clubs, but then Nike went out of business in Fort Worth, and then they're like, oh, you have to all the golf club manufacturers are in California, and I was like, I don't want to go there, um, so I was done with my design aspirations, and it's like, okay, let's go the business route. But I think it is a really good point that if you want to do design, then you create that value, right? You build that niche, and for you, it
Mhm.
was by going the master's route. And
You so much for watching this segment of the Engineering Success Podcast. If you liked it, make sure to check out the other videos down below that are recommended to you. And if you really like the podcast, make sure to subscribe right down there in the middle. We really appreciate it. It's free to you and helps us a lot out. And last but not least, the best way to help the show grow is to comment down below. So leave your comment if you have any thoughts about this segment. Thanks.
Chasing payments, still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.